Hello, I'm Governor Kim Reynolds, and I want to welcome you to Power Up Iowa's virtual conference. Clean power is having a transformative impact in states across America, and Iowa is no exception. In a moment, in recognition of the industry's many contributions to our state, I will read and sign a proclamation celebrating American Clean Power Week. Iowa runs on affordable, reliable, clean energy, now ranking first in the nation in share of all electricity produced by wind and solar energy at 59%. The industry is also putting Iowa to work, directly employing 5,200 people across the state, as well as many others along the supply chain. Iowa communities have attracted new businesses, billions in investment, millions in tax revenue, and stable income sources for our farmers, all because of clean energy. And with high-paying, clean power jobs like wind turbine technicians and solar installers, now among the fastest-growing jobs in the nation, Iowa's world-class community college and technician programs position us to take full advantage of the industry's expansion well into the future. And as governor, I couldn't be more excited to see what that future holds. And with that, it is my pleasure to read and sign this historic proclamation. Whereas clean energy makes up over 11% of the nation's electricity generation and provides enough clean energy to power over 50 million homes. And whereas clean energy powers our state's economy as well, driving more than $21 billion in total capital investment to date, $129.5 million in annual state and local tax payments, and almost $70 million in lease payments to Iowa landowners. And whereas clean energy provides more than 5,200 full-time jobs for Iowa, and whereas our state's commitment to clean energy has already proven to be a key component of our economic growth, and with continued investment, we can remain at the forefront of energy innovation and development. And now, therefore, I, Kim Reynolds, Governor of the state of Iowa, do hereby proclaim the week of October 25th through the 29th, 2021, as American Clean Power Week in Iowa, and encourage Iowans to learn more about the benefits of clean energy in our community and celebrate Iowa's leadership in renewable energy production.
In honor of Clean Power Week, this is Chuck Grassley, father of the wind energy tax credit. Proud to say that we get more than half of our electricity from wind power. I'm a supporter of all alternative energy for the good of the environment and, of course, for energy independence.
Hi folks, this is Senator Joni Ernst. Well, I'm sorry I can't be with you all in person. I'm honored to share a few words during American Clean Power Week 2021. As many of you know, Iowa is a leader in clean energy. From wind to solar to biofuel, clean energy supports thousands of good-paying jobs in our state and boosts our rural communities. That's why in the Senate, I'll continue working to support clean energy initiatives in Iowa and across the country. Thank you.
Well, hi everyone, it's Congresswoman Ashley Hinson from Northeast Iowa. Congratulations on participating in this year's American Clean Power Week virtual conference. Iowa is a leader in alternative energy and serves as a role model for how farmers and agriculture producers can incorporate clean energy practices into their operations. Whether it's biofuel production or using precision agriculture practices, our farmers and producers in Iowa are conscious caretakers of the land, all while working around the clock to feed and fuel the world. Iowa will continue leading the way with innovative clean energy solutions.
As we work to build America's clean energy future, I'm proud to support the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act in order to move us forward on those goals. This bipartisan bill will support the transition to clean energy, create more opportunities for our skilled and trained workforce, and also benefit our environment. In Iowa, we have avoided more than 32 million metric tons of CO2 emissions thanks to wind and solar energy projects, the equivalent of taking over 7 million cars off the road, and saved 10 billion gallons of water. And as someone who helped bring Iowa's wind energy industry to scale while working at Iowa's Department of Management, I'm so proud to see how far we've come already in turning the promise of a clean energy future into reality. And as we celebrate Iowa's status as a clean energy leader, I know that future investments through the Infrastructure Investments and Jobs Act and the Build Back Better Act will build on that success and continue our pathway to a fully sustainable energy future.
Hi everyone, Congressman Randy Feenstra here. For Clean Power Week, I wanted to take a moment to discuss how clean energy is good for Iowans. It brings new jobs, revenue for our communities, and reliable income for rural landowners, all while helping preserve our beautiful and fertile land here in Iowa. While the growth we have seen in wind and solar and biofuel production across our state is phenomenal, there are still plenty of work to be done. I look forward to working together as we have been to strengthen our storage and transmission capabilities across the board. As we celebrate American Clean Power Week, now is a perfect opportunity to renew our commitment to being the front runner of the transition to clean energy. Thank you.
Okay, Kelvy, I just made you host.
Welcome to Iowa's American Clean Power Week event. We are so happy to have you here, and we are really thankful to all of our elected officials who care so much about clean power in the state that they wanted to speak to our attendees today. My name is Kelvy Vanderhart. I will be our moderator today, and I'm a representative of Power Up Iowa. Power Up Iowa is a statewide coalition of renewable energy supporters from across the state and from across many different industries who have come together because they've witnessed the benefits clean power has brought to Iowa so far, and they want to see its future growth ensured. And that's exactly what we're here to celebrate during Clean Power Week, all the ways that clean power has provided benefits to our country, the ways it's grown over the past several years, and the ways that we can continue to grow it right here in Iowa and across the country. So we have a wonderful panel of experts here to talk about that today, and I will give them the opportunity to introduce themselves. So we will start with Mike Fair of Mid-American Energy.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm Mike Fair with Mid-American Energy Company. My title is Senior Vice President, Renewable Generation and Compliance. I've had the privilege of being in charge of the department that constructed and commissioned about half of Mid-American's 7,000 megawatt wind fleet. And I oversee operation of the entire fleet.
Wonderful, thanks, Mike. Tom, go ahead.
I'm Tom Wind. I'm a consulting engineer. I've worked for a utility for about 15 years earlier in my career and been on my own for over 25 years. I've been involved with wind power for the last 26 years. So, and I typically work on smaller wind projects and help the development of those.
Wonderful, Dave.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Dave Wisniewski. I'm Vice President of Utility Environmental Commercialization here at Vermeer Corporation in Pella, Iowa. Not only are we consumers of clean energy, but we are fantastically excited about being participants in the clean energy efforts of building out both solar and wind farm fields. So we're just really excited to be here with you today.
Thanks, Dave. Troy?
Good afternoon. I'm Troy McQuillan with Kirkwood Community College. I've been with the institution for 16 years and oversee much of the facilities and public safety entities for the college and main campus here in Cedar Rapids, as well as the other facilities. Although I was in teaching programs for 10 years, the CTE program specific to our energy production training programs here at Kirkwood as well. We are also a contributor with our 2.5 megawatt turbine here on main campus, which we use as our training aid, and a little bit of solar on property as well. Happy to be here.
Thanks, Troy. Bill?
Well, good afternoon. Bill Anderson, Executive Director of Cherokee Area Economic Development. I want to thank Power Up Iowa for the opportunity to be with you today. I also want to thank Governor Reynolds and our congressional delegation for their leadership on the clean energy issue. I think it's very important, and I think it's playing a big role in Iowa's economy and the growth in our economy. And as I look across our panel of experts, and they are experts, I'm looking forward to hearing what they have to say as much as probably many of the listeners, but I hope that I can share a little insight regarding Cherokee County's recently completed 200 megawatt wind project in Western Cherokee County. So that's what I hope I can bring to the conversation today. So I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. And last but certainly not least, Dusky.
Good afternoon, Dusky Terry, President of ITC Midwest. We are a transmission-only utility, so we don't own generation, but renewable energy has certainly been a major driver in our business. I've been with ITC Midwest for 2 years now, and prior to that, I led our resource planning at a Iowa-based cooperative, so was involved in the planning and development of several wind and solar projects that are now in service across the state. So look forward to the discussion.
Wonderful, thank you all. So we'll get straight into questions today because I know you guys all have a lot to say. Iowa is a leader on renewable energy, but we clearly didn't get there overnight. So what are some of the ways that you all, through the years that you've been working in renewable energy, what are some of the ways and how are some of the steps you've seen taken to make Iowa's renewable energy sector grow?
Calvi, I'd be happy to start. I think, here at Mid-American, we've been in the renewable business since about 2004, and we have a sizable wind fleet right now. And it's not just a Mid-American story. This is something that we've had good support from elected officials, from communities that host wind farms. Our customers have been supportive. And that's really been the key to it, I think, for us. I would also like to take advantage of American Clean Power Week to share that Mid-American's announcing really our first foray into solar. And so at the end of this year, we plan to have 61 megawatts of solar generation online here in the state of Iowa as well.
Wonderful. That's an exciting announcement. Tom, I know you have some insight into, specifically how wind has grown over the last couple of years. Would love to hear any thoughts you have regarding that topic.
I'll be glad to, since I'm probably the oldest person on the panel here. When I got started, it was 26 or 7 years ago. And at that time, there were 6 turbines in the state of Iowa. They weren't very big, 6 medium-sized turbines. And 3 of them were owned by school systems. One was by a hospital and another was by a manufacturer, and the last one was by a retailer. And why did we have 6 turbines? This is a little unique in the upper Midwest. And Iowa had very progressive policies that supported renewable energy. Back then, it was a net billing policy, which enabled these school systems to put these turbines up. So think of the growth that we've had from 6 turbines, which totaled less than 1 megawatt back then, to what we've had today. And I think the key to this has been policy, state policy. We've been a fairly progressive state when it comes to energy. We have no coal, we have no oil, and as a result, we turn to alternative energy as a source to deal, as a way to deal with energy problems and energy supply in the future. And so the legislature, the governor, have generally been very supportive and adopted policies, and that's what's made what's happened today. That's what enabled it to happen.
Wonderful. That's great insight. So we've seen businesses like Facebook, manufacturing companies, other businesses come to Iowa, and we've also seen local businesses talking about their appreciation for renewable energy. What makes renewable energy so attractive to businesses that might be looking at Iowa as a state setup or to local businesses in different communities?
I think there's really 2 things that come to mind for me. The first one is that all the wind that we've added we have added at no net cost to our customers. So that has really helped us. It's a zero fuel source of energy, and that's helped us have low rates. Our electric rates are about 32% lower than the national average and 11th lowest in the country. So just the fact that the electricity is low cost, of course, is attractive to everybody, but also a lot of the companies that we serve, they have their own customers that are more and more insistent on trying to track the carbon footprint of the supply chain of the things that they use. And so for us to be able to provide low carbon, high renewable, and also low cost energy, really, I think is a good combination.
Yeah, great insight. And I don't want to jump over any panelists that might be wanting to add. So feel free to stop me if I just move on to the next question. I know it's a little bit different in this virtual world. Iowa's renewable energy industry is growing, but no growth comes without challenges. So what are some of the challenges that renewable energy faces here in our state?
I think one of the challenges is we've been pretty successful with growing renewable energy here, especially wind, given the state, it has an outstanding wind resource. And wind really works well with agriculture. The wind turbines are spaced out and the land in between them can be farmed. And so that's led to a fast rate of growth of wind energy. And I'd say one of the issues that we're starting to see is that we need more transmission to help further continue that rate of growth so that we can get more of the energy from the wind fields to markets.
Yeah, this is Dusky, and I would echo Mike's comments. Clearly, look no further than the MISO queue and the number of renewable generator projects that are waiting to be built and developed and put into service, but are waiting because of insufficient transmission capacity on the grid today. And so clearly there's a need for additional transmission investment. The need is great, and the need is now in order to allow that continued development of renewable energy across the state. So that's one major challenge that we're trying to address here at ITC.
Absolutely. This question also has a flip side too, which is a lot more positive. Iowa is a great state for renewable energy. So what are some of the opportunities that we can tap into for growth across the state?
I don't want to dominate the conversation, but I think transmission is also an opportunity. It's one of those things that if we could add transmission, a better transmission network would have let us better time diversify renewables by connecting to other states. Maybe when it's not windy in Iowa, it's windy in some of the other states, especially those that have common energy markets with Iowa. So that's an opportunity. I think solar is an opportunity. I doubt Iowa will ever have as much solar as it does wind, just because the wind resource is really good here. But solar also can help time diversify when renewables are delivered to customers. So if you look at the wind production profile and the solar production profile, they really complement each other pretty well. And I think there's a good opportunity there. And I think you're going to see that in the coming years. You're going to start to see more solar installed in the state.
I think another opportunity is economic. Wind and solar are lower cost options for generation than more traditional sources. And so as we add that low cost generation in wind and solar energy here in Iowa, we have a wholesale market that is competitive. And as you add that low cost generation, you're displacing the higher cost generation sources. And that's a benefit to the consumers at the end of the line at the end of the day.
Dusky, that leads perfectly into what I was going to ask next. I believe it was mentioned a little bit in some of the videos that our elected officials sent in. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about this positive economic impact that renewable energy has had. Bill, I think you have some really great insight about that, but we know it's there, so would love to hear you discuss that a little bit.
Well, I would definitely echo some of the comments made as far as policy, our policymakers being very supportive of this. And with that, allowed for, again, the 200 megawatt project that was recently completed in the western part of Cherokee County. Total investment was $246 million. 150 construction jobs were created. 73 million in taxable value, which will generate 1.5 million in property tax revenue that'll support the county, the townships, the school districts. But then back to that infrastructure question, that second phase of what would have been the second phase of the Glacier's Edge was kind of put on hold, and they actually moved on. But we do have another wind company that is looking at doing another 72 turbines in the western part of the county, kind of the western and southern part of the county. So that project is going to actually happen. But I would agree, back to the infrastructure portion of that is something that definitely is going to have to be addressed to see these projects continue to move forward. And looking at just other things that were impacted. Rentals, I mean, obviously the demand far exceeded what was available. Hotels saw a 50% increase in bookings while this project was taking place. Restaurants, grocery stores, convenience stores, 25% increase in business during these projects. So there's a lot of economic impact, a positive economic impact that comes with these projects. And that was one small project, 82 turbines. And with the 72, I expect we'll see the same type of impacts. Lots of positives that come with these projects. We've seen growth of solar also, especially amongst producers, hog and turkey facilities and those types of things. And sometimes those projects will offset 95% of what their energy costs are just with what they're installing with solar. So, between that and we have one of the best run, in my opinion, one of the best run ethanol plants in the nation over in Marcus. So we've seen a lot of good come from clean renewable energy here in Cherokee County.
This is Dave.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Tom. I think I can chime in here a little bit in terms of the economic benefits of the clean energy movement for certain. Whether it be wind or solar, Vermeer is active in really the beginning all the way to the end of the process. And so we are involved on the wind side, and I think Mike would corroborate these facts, that there's literally thousands of feet of trench put in for every wind turbine that's erected. And then also tremendous hundreds of feet of directional drilling, which is a product line that Vermeer is quite active in. And we get into the solar side of the industry, both trenching and directional drilling takes place on solar installations, as well as the driving of the piles. Vermeer is involved in all aspects of that, whether it be trenching, drilling, or driving of the piles. And in fact, we've even been involved here recently on the disposal side of the turbine blades in trying to grind those blades into something that can be used as a recyclable material. So we're kind of cradle to grave involved here, and the economic prosperity is certainly not every one of our members that are working in the plants that produce those products are producing products that go into solar or wind, but there's over 1,000 people in the plants that do produce those products. So right here in central Iowa, we are highly active in all of this activity that's taking place.
I might add that just from my perspective, I've developed a couple small wind farms around Jefferson, Iowa, which is in west central Iowa. And our first project was 15 years ago, and the 7 turbines were installed there. We've now contributed to about $1.2 million in local property taxes to Greene County. $1.2 million for those 7 turbines. Didn't cost the county anything that I knew, that I can think of in terms of costs. So it was purely a net gain. Of course, the property owners got another about $500,000 over that same time period. And since then, we've developed a second wind farm, and we were able to get a supplier, an O&M supplier, an operations manager to establish an office in Jefferson. So we now have an office in our town of 4,000 people that has 4 wind technicians, which are some of the highest paid jobs in our town. And they service our turbines plus some of Mid-Americans occasionally and other companies too. So they work out of our office and service turbines around the area. So that's a really big deal for a town of 4,000 people to have those types of jobs. And we have the type of people that work there are young, 20s, 30s, and they typically stay around, buy a house, start a family oftentimes. And so that is really, excuse me, a positive benefit for small towns like where I live.
I'll add in there too. So I live in Madison County, Iowa, which is a rural county. And like a lot of rural counties that have seen, wind development, there's not only the local impact that was just discussed, but there's also impact to the individual landowners. And we see landowners and farmers that are seeing that the payments help stabilize farm income coming from these renewable energy projects like wind and solar. So there's been a benefit to the rural ag economy as well.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Oh, it's already kind of been said, but just to put a number to some of that, I mean, Mid-American, since our first wind farm was placed in service in 2004, we've paid over $172 million in landowner easement payments. Most of that going to the types of small towns and communities that Tom was discussing, where, they're losing population as ag equipment gets bigger and more efficient, and, being able to bring jobs to rural Iowa that way, certainly that's a benefit. I think one other economic benefit that maybe hasn't been touched on as much is just the fact that by having such a highly renewable generation mix, we've attracted businesses that aren't directly related to the wind industry, but again, their customers like to see that they have a high renewable component to their supply chain, and so that attracts customers. We've seen our industrial load grow over the last few years, even as we've watched neighboring states lose industrial load. So I think wind is part of that story.
Yeah, absolutely. And a common theme through most of these answers has been jobs, right? One of the great economic benefits of renewable energy. And Troy, I think you can actually speak to that very, very well. Would you like to talk a little bit about, Kirkwood and some of the training programs that are happening?
Yeah, so just one community college in the state that's offering energy management production certificates, so 1-year degrees and 2-year degree options. It's challenging to keep these students in a degree seeking because these jobs are so readily available now. And much to what you're seeing in a lot of the trades areas and within the state, there's a high demand for these technician types jobs, whether they receive their training through a technical school or if it's some sort of on-the-job training opportunity. But what we're finding here is that our generations of students that are attending our community college have a real passion for the sustainable approaches that the institutions are taking, as well as the renewable concepts that they've seen throughout the times they're growing up. And they turn that passion into a career field. And we're recruiting them right into these programs. Our current program of a 2-year degree AAS has 24 students in it. And I'm sure folks like Mike would like to see 75 students in those programs to help fill those positions. We do actively recruit. We think we have the best facilities to train on. Our wind turbine is 10 years old now, so it is one of the things that they get not the most recent technologies on, but they appreciate the opportunities to climb and to do the safety inspections and to perform the requirements of the program itself. So we like that see, feel, touch, and smell the things that they're learning within our campus and our areas. And the program has diversified also, where it used to be just about wind is now about solar and about other generations, as they're pretty diverse work experiences that these employers are looking for. But we take a lot of our guidance from the advisory committees. The employers that are hiring our students come back with very positive feedback for us in the programs. We also do quite a bit of continuing education just to refresh on some skills, any OSHA requirements that are out there for the wind turbine technician fields. I have personally been impressed with the technology changes since our 10-year-old turbine has been here on property. It has contributed to our success as an institution, and we relay that data to our students each day. They know how much we spend in utility and how much we save in utility. And I'll tell you, that really drives a lot of passion for the students' ideas, anywhere from recycling all the way to energy. So you're starting to see a real common thread with these generations and wanting to turn that into a career because they're passionate about making this work for them and their families.
Absolutely, that's wonderful. Yeah, it's you know, wind technicians, solar installers, those are, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, two of the fastest growing careers in the entire country. So to have the opportunity to train and employ people in those fields here in Iowa is fantastic. Troy, could you talk a little bit more about, I guess, some of the logistical, I'm trying to think of the right word, maybe a little bit about what salary expectations are for those types of jobs. You know, if students were looking to get into those careers, maybe how did they move forward?
Well, I tell you, one of the attraction is the salaries for all of our career technical programs. If you peruse our website, you'll see that the salaries are listed in all of those career field jobs, everything from agribusiness all the way to welding, HVAC, and then at the top of the list is the wind turbine technicians programs as well. And we're very honest with students, our faculty, about what entry-level wages may be or what progression they may see at an entity based upon if they receive promotions. We know that sign-on bonuses are becoming popular in the recruitment field. I'll tell you, one of the most important things that we're seeing is the internship, is really the lock-in right off the bat. And a lot of employers have been very competitive on internships. And if you're listening to this, the earlier you develop your internship program, the better. Many of our students will graduate or have ability to do internships early May. That means January, you need to have your internship postings ready for these community colleges to be able to distribute through their students so that they can start interviewing and making these decisions about the best fit for those as well. I'll tell you that pay is part of it. Culture is a close second. We talk with students a lot about what they're looking for in culture of the work environment, what kind of training they'll receive. Of course, housing, uniform, meals, vehicles, these are all great things, but also students like that, the work-life balance. We talk with them about, you know, many of them graduate from here and they move back to their hometowns. Like Kirkwood's recruitment is really in our 7-county area. They come for 2 years, maybe meet a significant other, and they go right back to their communities. And we appreciate seeing that outward pieces like in Cherokee and other the small rural communities, because these students are returning and becoming contributors of that area as well. But it is very competitive. We wish we had triple the students and triple the faculty for that, but we have 100 and some career option decisions here to choose from, and we appreciate that not everyone wants to be in the trenches, so to say, with this career field. But I'll tell you that the salary opportunities are really intriguing, but there's other things that go with that about when recruiting students, even to an internship. That's something that we've seen throughout the years of the programs.
Delvey, there's two things that I'd like to add to
Absolutely.
what Troy said here. He brought up a couple of thoughts. Not only has this industry in general advanced or evolved the opportunity for careers for young folks, folks of all age, but one of the really interesting things about this industry is how it has advanced technology. So Troy talked about a 10-year-old wind turbine today might not necessarily be state of the art. And that is, you know, as you follow this industry, whether it be wind or solar, the advancements in technology, the driving down of costs, it's really been a leading edge type thing. And this industry has pushed us as manufacturers to also look at how we are manufacturing our equipment that goes into the manufacture of these solar fields or solar or wind farms or solar fields. You know, things like automation, efficiency gains, finding ways, quite frankly, to maybe do a little bit more with less folks as it becomes more and more difficult to find people to come and work, in this industry. So it's been, I think, just a great transformational industry in general. And I don't know if Mike or anybody else has got more they might add to that.
Yeah, I think these are definitely good times to be a wind technician in the state of Iowa. There's a lot of demand, and if it's something that someone is interested in pursuing and they are, comfortable and working at heights, you have to not be claustrophobic. There's some things, it's not for everybody, but if you're comfortable with that, I think the actual job market out there is quite strong. So. Yeah, and I think everything you said about the technology changes over time is spot on too. The first wind turbines we put in, they're quite a bit smaller than the ones we have now. They also weren't as efficient. So if you put in for every megawatt you put in of those first wind farms, you'd maybe average 250 kilowatts over the course of a year, just because they weren't as good at capturing, especially the low wind energy. Now we expect that to be almost double. And so not only are the turbines, 4 to 5 times larger in terms of what their maximum capacity is, they also produce about twice as much energy per megawatt, just because they're able to produce during a lot of low wind conditions when the older technology wouldn't have been as capable. So it has definitely changed and got more efficient over time.
And I might add a little longer term perspective. When I started 47 years ago working for an electric utility in Iowa as a power engineer, all we could do back then was figure out how to build the next coal-fired power plant. And we built them in Council Bluffs and Sioux City and Muscatine and Ottumwa. And load growth was 7% per year, and it was a struggle to keep up. I never would have thought that an alternative energy source could ever replace what we were doing 47 years ago. But it's what we've been talking about, that technology has changed. The cost of electricity out of the first turbines in Iowa was more like 15, 16, 17 cents a kilowatt hour. And the only reason they were economic is because of subsidies and grants and things like that. But today, no subsidy is needed. It is the true cost of solar and wind power is competitive with other sources of power. And it's all because technology has improved the efficiency of the turbines, has made them more reliable. It wasn't very many years ago, we only thought a gearbox would last 5, 6, 7, 8 years before it had to be replaced. Now we're looking at 20-year lifetimes for gearboxes with no major repairs. That makes a significant difference in the cost of wind power. So it's engineers working for the companies that build wind turbines that make them more reliable, more available. And that's what's allowing our progression away from carbon emitting resources. So never did I think that this transition would happen in my lifetime. I thought it would take another 20, 30 years for it to happen. I'm just surprised every day I wake up to think that Mid-American gets such a high percentage of their electricity for their customers from wind generation.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I think Tom made some really good points there. The transition, we had our first coal units, our first wind units go online in 2004. And from 2005 through last year, in that time period, we saw our carbon emissions drop by 58% while our load grew the whole time. So it really has been. And I think part of the reason that the productivity gains have happened in wind really are due to the subsidy. I think that really stimulated the industry. It put a lot of money into, commercial wind turbines that allowed the manufacturers to invest more in R&D. And I think it really did a good job of what you would want a subsidy to do, and that's helped the technology become competitive.
Absolutely, great insight. I have a question specifically for Dusty now. We discussed transmission a little bit and, the importance of having a strong grid, strong transmission system. what are some of the specific challenges facing transmission infrastructure here in Iowa? And is there any federal, state, et cetera, legislation that could help address some of these?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, I mentioned earlier the need for additional transmission capacity. If you look historically, one thing that really enabled the massive shift to renewable energy to occur in Iowa and across the Midwest was some forward thinking by MISO and planning. And back in 2011, they approved a series of 17 major transmission projects called the MVPs, or multi-value projects, that really provided the capacity that was needed to bring on all of this renewable generation and primarily wind. And of those 17 projects, ITC was involved in building 3, MVP 3, 4, and 7. And we currently are constructing the last one, MVP 5, Cardinal Hickory Creek, up in northeast Iowa and southwest Wisconsin. Each one of those MVP projects, though, once they were built and placed into service, was fully subscribed. And that goes for MVP 5 as well. Once that is done and placed in service by the end of 2023, we have 114 generators currently, 108 of which are renewable energy generation resources that are waiting to interconnect once that line is done. That amounts to about 17 gigawatts of renewable energy in the pipeline waiting for that project to be built. So if we look at what has enabled us to get to where we are, and we think about where we need to get to and allow this continued development of renewable energy, we need another round of regional transmission projects to be developed to meet that ongoing need. And we need to act now because it takes years. I mean, it took 10 years to get even the MVP projects up and running. And so if you think about another decade, action needs to be taken now. And so part of your question, Kelvy, was about, are there state actions or federal actions that are benefiting? And I would say yes. If we look at the state level, Iowa last year took action to provide certainty over who builds these regional transmission projects. As you know, the private sector responds to a regulatory and policy certainty, and it typically leads to better outcomes. And we're now seeing other states in the Midwest that are also looking at granting that certainty over who gets to build these transmission lines. At the federal level, I think everybody's aware there's federal legislation moving through the process. There's updates coming out today about negotiations on the bipartisan legislation to invest in infrastructure. ITC is supportive of that. We think it makes a strong statement and really prioritizes the need for that transmission development. And we think it's a good start, but I'd also point out that there is further work that needs to be done by FERC and by MISO and by other RTOs before we can actually start putting poles in the ground and lines in the air, which is obviously what we need to provide the capacity for additional renewable energy. I'll make one final point, which has come up before in the discussion. The good news is we've got strong bipartisan support and commitment to renewable energy and to grid modernization. We're seeing leadership, at the federal level by the Biden administration. We've seen strong leadership here in Iowa by Governor Reynolds, not only on renewable energy, but also as chair of the Midwest Governors Association. She made the priority issue of mid-grid 2035, which is really making sure that we've got the development in the grid to meet the needs of renewable energy by the time we get to 2035. And so strong bipartisan leadership really has helped pave the way for what I think is the needed policy to be able to move forward.
That's fantastic insight. Thank you, Dusty. Appreciate that. We're drawing near to the end of our time, but I'd just like to open the floor to our wonderful panelists for any, closing thoughts or remarks you may have about this issue. We really appreciate all your expertise. If you have more that you think would be beneficial to attendees, would love to hear it.
Thank you for the opportunity, Kelvy. I don't have anything to add. I appreciate the insights from the other panelists and appreciate being invited to participate.
I would also echo that. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this panel today. Dusky made some great points, and in my time in the legislature, I would say that there were many issues where maybe we didn't see eye to eye from the two parties, but with renewables, I think it always enjoyed broad bipartisan support, and I hope that continues, because that definitely has made a difference. And I think certainty, I think that was something Dusky mentioned, also certainty in policy is very important. So again, thank you for the opportunity. I've really enjoyed listening to the other panelists today. This is a great opportunity for us and those that were able to attend this. So thank you.
Kelly, I'd just like to echo the thoughts of the other folks on the panel. Thank you very much for the opportunity. This is an incredibly important topic, and we just look forward to working with all of these people into the future.
And I just wish I were about 25 years younger to see through this remarkable transition in our energy system. Absolutely remarkable. And because if we look forward to solar, to more transmission, to integrated everything together, and then ultimately storage, I wish I were going to be around to see all of this happen.
I appreciate also being a part of it here. I just add that it's never too early to do career exploration for all kiddos, from middle school to grade school to high school. It's one of the huge pillars that Kirkwood has just to help recruit. There are less and less students graduating each year, making it more challenging to recruit students into these career technical programs across the board, wind turbine technician, energy programs included. And I'm sure we'll start to feel some of these shortages, no matter what salaries will be on the books for that. So I just really am passionate about making sure that many people on the call today, the webinar today, can get into these groups and talk about what they do and what they love. It makes a difference when they go to decide what their next career options will be. They'll remember the passion and the impact that even the panelists had today in those steps. So we're always here to take them to the next level and then get them employed and into the workforce for sure. So thanks for the time today.
Troy, when you said it's never too late, I thought maybe you were talking to me about going into the wind technician program.
It's never too late, Tom. I would just wrap up by saying that, clearly, based on the conversation today, renewable energy is good for Iowa. It's good from an economic standpoint, an environmental standpoint, and certainly the consumer ultimately benefits. And ITC Midwest is happy to play a role in that good benefit for the state of Iowa. And if you like renewables, you got to love transmission, because that's what really makes it happen. It connects that distributed renewable generation to load ultimately, and we're absolutely committed to making sure that we've got the transmission capacity to serve that new generation ready to come online.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again to all of our panelists for participating today. We appreciated having you on. We also appreciate the elected officials who wanted to share messages for American Clean Power Week. We appreciate just the bipartisan support of clean power across Iowa, because clean power is truly beneficial for Iowa, and we are excited to see it grow in the future. So if you had a question spurred or would like to know more about renewable energy sources in Iowa, you can head over to powerupiowa.com, become a coalition member, read more. We're also on Facebook and Twitter as Power Up Iowa, so feel free to follow us there. And if you had a specific question that you'd like to get information about, either from Power Up Iowa or get connected with any one of our panelists, you can certainly send me an email. My information is in the email that you received inviting you to this event. So thank you once again for joining us. We appreciate having you, and have a happy rest of your American Clean Power Week.